started asking friends. I started asking around, and they're like, there's this new thing. It's called Airbnb. And at that point, obviously, no one knew what that was. I mean, Airbnb was the first short-term rental. It's synonymous. When you say short-term rental, that's what everybody thinks of is Airbnb. It's not the only one, but it was the first one. And it had just started in Charlotte. I knew I had to do something. And so after I had in writing that she was going to pay, I was like, all right, well, let me just roll the dice and see what happens. And it's funny how trends progress the way they progress, because back then I used my camera phone, which I don't even know if iPhones were a thing back then, and uploaded some pictures and, changed out some bedding, moved some furniture around, and probably within an hour, my place was booked.
What's happening, family? My name is Tyler. This is Daryl, my co-host, checking in, and this is Uncharted Mind, the show where we speak or talk about life, health, and wealth. And today is one of those anticipated shows that we've been waiting for ourselves, but let alone, for a lot of content, a lot of value to add to y'all, as our listeners, man. And today's episode is all about Airbnbs, right? Airbnb is probably one of the most intriguing industries because you can have a rental property that you don't own and make money off of it, subrenting it out to other people. And so the whole process of it, I don't know much about it, but the whole process of it is pretty genius, man. And I am interested in hearing more about the space, man. So today, man, we brought an expert in the space, someone who's been in the space for a few years, I guess probably close to the beginning of Airbnb. And she has all the game, all the knowledge, all the insight from the management perspective and from the ownership perspective of the business, man. So, without further ado, man, we're going to go ahead and introduce our esteemed guest, man, Miss Ashley. Ashley, how are you doing?
What's up, party people?
What's going on? How you feeling?
Oh, just living the dream, just getting check-ins done and making people happy to be in Charlotte today.
Okay. Charlotte, Queen City. Yeah. Love
Charlotte.
It.
Yes.
Can't wait to see it. All right. So
we coming.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's just get in, if you don't mind, let's get into a little bit of your background, like schooling or prior jobs that you held before getting into the Airbnb space. So you can give us a little rundown on that.
Yeah, so I went to a college in Rock Hill, South Carolina called Winthrop.
Okay.
Partied a lot. Probably didn't do as well as I should have done. Ended up having my daughter, and right before the recession, when no one could find jobs, I ended up putting myself back through school, and I went to a Christian college, Montreat College, Billy Graham's college, and got my degree in marketing and public relations and business administration.
Okay.
So 2 months shy of graduating, I was on, one of those websites called Craigslist looking for jobs because that's where we used to find all of our jobs. And I saw an ad for a brand ambassador for a up and coming liquor company. And I was like, all right, let me just roll the dice. I just got a marketing degree. Let's see what happens. And it happened to be for Fireball. So I was able to be on the ground level before Fireball even launched. It came from a joint venture that was actually already created. They just rebranded it, gave it a new name and all that jazz.
So Fireball, the liquor, correct? Just so the people know. Okay.
Yeah. So there was only about 20 of us in the United States that held this position. And I worked my way up to marketing manager, and I ran the state of South Carolina with my coworker down there, and North Carolina and a little bit of Georgia. And that was kind of my segue into this one of the worlds that I didn't know existed. And I've worked for brands. I've worked for Kettle One. I've worked for Captain Morgan. I've worked for which are under the Diageo brands. I've worked for Miller Coors. So I've been in the alcohol industry. I was in the alcohol industry for about 15, 16 years.
Okay. Sheesh. So I guess what was your entry point into the Airbnb business?
So as I was finishing up with, I guess it was like a segue of, I'm trying to, all the years kind of run together, right? 2020 threw us all for a loop. And I'm like, what year was that? So 2014 into 15, I was segueing into Fireball into Diageo or Kettle One. And it just didn't feel right. Like the company just didn't feel right. I had become a newly single mom. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time. We cheered together. And I came home one day and all of her stuff was packed up. She had left and she had moved to New York. And I stood there with a 4-year-old and going, how am I going to pay my bills? And I just started talking to friends.
So at this time, so real quick. So at this time, she was your roommate. So I'm assuming you had like this big spacious apartment or building or house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a condo.
Okay, so y'all had a condo. Okay.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you were trying to find out how you could take care of her half of the bills because she was out, correct?
Well, that I'll lead that into my next part where I threatened her like the mafia.
Okay.
Because I mean, she moved to New York. I wasn't going to be able to find her if she, completely dipped.
Exactly.
So I started asking friends. I started asking around, and they're like, there's this new thing. It's called Airbnb. And at that point, obviously, no one knew what that was. I mean, Airbnb was the first short-term rental. It's synonymous. When you say short-term rental, that's what everybody thinks of is Airbnb. It's not the only one, but it was the first one. And it had just started in Charlotte. I knew I had to do something. And so after I had in writing that she was going to pay, I was like, all right, well, let me just roll the dice and see what happens. And it's funny how trends progress the way they progress, because back then I used my camera phone, which I don't even know if iPhones were a thing back then, and uploaded some pictures and, changed out some bedding, moved some furniture around, and probably within an hour, my place was booked. My first booking was a group of guys coming in for one of the football games, and I was scared to death. I was like, they are going to destroy this place. I don't know what's going to happen. But then when I saw the amount, I was like, that's half my rent. So
for how many
because
days?
at that point, it wasn't. It was for the weekend.
Just for the weekend, half your rent.
Yeah.
That's
and yeah. We had a 3-bedroom condo. It was 2, 4, 6 with a pull-out couch, so 8 guys. And I think it was about $700 to $800 that I rented it for that weekend. And
this is in 2014, correct?
2015, yeah.
2015. Sheesh. Okay.
There was no Airbnbs during that time, so the market wasn't saturated. I lived in a really nice part of town, right off the interstate with proximity to uptown. Restaurants, bars, it kind of all played together. And so I did it, and I was like, I'm addicted now. Like I can't stop this. But funny story about that is I got home and I walk in and there is a blue tarp, a blue complete tarp covering my entire living room. And I thought, oh my God, they've murdered somebody. Like what happened? And the guy messaged me and he goes, hey, we played beer pong. I didn't want to get anything on your carpet. So we went to Lowe's and bought a tarp and we covered your entire living room floor.
Okay.
Oh, that's dope.
And I was like, all right, like this is legit. And so, I did that for about a full year and I made about $25,000. I knew that it was something where I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to buy a house for my daughter and I to build a life. And, I used that money to put a down payment on a house. And
can we, hold on. Can we, cause I don't I don't want to blow over that
Yeah, you
because
gloss over that real quick.
here's the thing, man. Like we have to like really think about the variables in your situation at this time, right? You know, you were a single mom. Your roommate had just, scrammed on you, right? And you had 1 or 2 rooms to rent out at the time?
3.
So you had
It was
3
a
rooms to rent out.
3-bedroom condo.
Okay. And that's including your room, correct?
Yeah, so that was the master, that was the other master, and then my daughter had a room. So yeah, that was 3 rooms.
So you stayed.
Wow.
So you stayed elsewhere while the property was rented out. Is that?
Yeah,
I guess that's
so
what
we
Tyler
only
trying.
rented on the weekends.
Okay.
Yeah, we only rented on the weekends. We didn't stay there.
Okay.
And in between sharing custody of my daughter, I would either travel the world and go see what life was about, or I would go to my parents' house in Columbia and hang out with them for the weekend.
Wow. So okay, so because I want to put this in perspective. You single mom. You had this. You were in this crisis, and you found out about Airbnb through, I don't know, the grapevine. And,
yeah, I mean, it was just kind of peeking through at that point.
Exactly, and you decided to rent it out, and you had this house that you only rented out 8 days out the month, right?
Yeah.
And you were still able to make $25,000 in your first year.
Yeah. I mean, you got to also think about holidays. We were booked every single holiday: Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Halloween, Carowinds. I live right near Carowinds, so if you guys are familiar with Charlotte, that's one of the biggest amusement parks in this area. So yeah, it was $25,000 in cash that I put down on my house from Airbnb.
Man, so okay, so the $25,000, that was the profit after paying the rent.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And taxes? Wow. I don't know how is you calculate.
Well, back then.
Okay. We won't say nothing else. We won't say anything else. Okay, I got you.
That's dope, man.
I got my house now, though, so it's okay.
I just didn't want that part to go over anybody's head, like as they were listening to it, because
that was,
that's
off of one property.
That's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So my question was, with these kind of, which Airbnb has been around for a little while now, but with these newer ways to make like passive income, it's kind of hard for people to imagine themselves like in it. You know what I'm saying? Like Turo, like it's kind of hard for people to imagine themselves like lending out their car and letting someone else use it, for their leisure or whatever. So how did you get over that? Like, I guess from the money, but how did you like delineate from, okay, this is my personal space until now it's like a revenue making asset? You know what I'm saying? What was the mindset change on that?
You have to emotionally detach yourself from it. Because even after my condo and me buying my house, I still rented out my house for a year. And that was harder than my condo, because my condo was not something that I was fully invested in. Yeah. My house was hard. That took a beating, because if something was messed up in the house, I was responsible for fixing that at that point. So when I coach people and I talk to people about starting Airbnbs, short-term rentals, we really focus on not being attached to the furniture, not being attached to personal things in the home. And that's why so many people now are moving into investment properties, and it's not their own home, because they physically and mentally cannot detach themselves from personal things in their home.
Got you.
Makes sense.
Okay. So Airbnb, just in a brief, like 2 or 3 liner, what is Airbnb for the people who've been living under a rock for the past couple of years? And then after you answer that, myself, Daryl, Uncharted Mind, and the rest of the world, we may be potentially interested in entering this business. Where do I start?
Sure. So Airbnb is basically a bed and breakfast that you rent out, with, obviously not, I mean, some people do stay in the home. Some people don't stay in the home. It's much more looked at up north, where people stay in the home, versus down south. But my mosquito guy's outside spraying my yard right now. So if you hear him,
Okay.
Nah, you good.
he was
you good.
supposed to be rescheduled, but we have really bad mosquitoes here, and it's starting to get pretty rough outside. So,
Sure. No.
so it's basically taking a property and creating a turnkey property with all the necessities that are going to be needed for that stay, and putting it on a website and renting it out and treating it like a business.
Okay.
So to
within that,
segue into your next question about
okay.
how you can get into it, the first part is like figuring out which location you want to be in and how you are going to either manage it or you're going to have someone else manage it, because at the end of the day, the way the algorithm grows is that you depend on your reviews. If your reviews are not good, if you're not a super host, if you don't take care of your guests, if the communication isn't there, if the accuracy isn't there, if it's false advertising, what your property looks like, you don't have a chance, because you will be dinged unbelievably. And once that happens, it's almost like you're blackballed from the system. So it's really taking into like how you plan on creating the profits from that with what your plan is to do to manage it or have someone else manage it.
Okay. Makes sense.
So how important is it to kind of, if you can, pre-plan like the property type, you know what I'm saying, the location, the size, the amount of the bed, amount of beds in the property, the amenities, like, is that something you should kind of focus on before, you even start, or can you just, just list the property that you have and go from there?
So a lot of people get really caught up in this because they think the more people that they squeeze into a house, the more money they're going to make, when actually that's not really the case. The more damages you're going to incur, the more your neighbors are not going to be happy with you, the more the city's not going to be happy with you, because it's basically like cramming a bunch of people into a house and not having enough room for occupancy. So we really focus. We do have bigger homes, but they're more like lake homes where families are going to be traveling together. So we focus on either 2 2s, 2 1s, 3 2s, 3 1s, 2 4 6, sometimes 8 with a pull-out couch. So 8 is usually my maximum capacity, and that's at least got to be a 3-bedroom house with.
So when you say 2 1s, 2 2s, can you explain? Is that 2 bedrooms, 1 bath?
2 bedrooms, 1 bath.
Okay.
2 bedrooms, 1 bath. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Because again, you're taking out the corporate part of it. It becomes a very personal relationship with the guest. And so, if you have 8 people coming and they got to share 1 bathroom, they're not going to be too happy about that.
Yeah, true.
So you got to really think about, okay, if my occupancy is going to be 8, I probably need to have 8 dining chairs for someone to sit in. I need to have enough seating in my living room for someone to sit in. I need to have probably a patio set for them to be able to go outside and chill out. But also I need to have enough bathrooms for people. Otherwise, you may be faced with septic issues.
Got you. True. That makes sense. And so what's a good ratio when it comes to the person, or I guess the adult, to the amount of bathrooms that's available in the property? Is it like a 2-to-1 type ratio? How do you typically rate it? Rate it?
I mean, like I said, we look for properties that are usually 3 2s or 3 2.5s. Again, like I said, I don't go over occupancy of 8, because after that it just becomes a crap show.
Gotcha.
And then my cleaning girls hate me. So that goes into a whole nother segue. But you can still make maximum profit off of a 3 2, 3 2.5.
Okay. All right. And so you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but furniture, right? When we talking furnishing these properties, what furniture are you looking for when you're furnishing the property? Does it depend on if the unit's a luxury type unit? Does it depend on if it's a theme unit? Because I've heard, there are theme units, I guess more luxurious units. Like how do you choose your furniture, and how do you know, I guess, what's too much and what's not enough?
Okay, so I have a staging business, an interior design business along with this. Okay. And that was kind of a natural progression with working with the investors and understanding on the cleaning side and management side what people were looking for, because I was the
Okay.
one that was responding to these messages.
Mhm.
And so we buy from our wholesalers. We have a couple wholesalers in Charlotte that love them some Ashley and give me some great deals.
Gotcha.
Um, First and foremost, quality furniture. You're going to be having, 100 people stay in this house in maybe a 2-month period. It's got to withstand things. Your flooring has to withstand things. And so one of the things that we've kind of streamlined is only working with investors that are giving us full reign of the property to do what we need to do to make that profit.
Gotcha.
So I'm not big into going into a property and reupholstering someone's grandma's couch. I'm not into that. And that's kind of where I was talking about how short-term rental has progressed so much since 2014-15, where you used to could snap pictures on your iPhone and use your own furniture. It's not like that anymore. Can you? Absolutely. Is your profit going to be the same? 1000% no. People have a much broader expectation for Airbnbs now, or short-term rentals. They want to feel like they're in a hotel. They want to feel like it's luxury if they're paying that price. If
Gotcha.
you're $80 a night or you're $70 a night, sure, you can use that. But if I'm asking 300, 400, 500, 1,000 a night, it can't have fraternity furniture in that. It's got to be, very nice, upstanding quality furniture.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay, and also, like, do you have to keep in mind like any safety like regulations as far as like occupancy and like fire hazards and all those type things, like when you're staging your rental spots?
So Airbnb has a thing now that you have to go through when you're listing a property, and it's basically all the amenities. And so it's like carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors. Did you supply a fire extinguisher? Do you supply a first aid kit? And that's kind of the list that we go off on, because what I will tell you is if you say you have something in that house and that house burns down and there wasn't a fire extinguisher in there, you're on the hook for that. So they take that very seriously, and we go through that checklist. My staging manager goes through that checklist every time we do orders and make sure that those items are in the house.
Okay. So Airbnb basically, Airbnb they create that list, or they have that list, and you just follow that. And as long as you have that, at least from a liability standpoint, you're covered.
Right.
Okay.
And they also have Air Cover, which is their umbrella insurance policy.
Gotcha.
So you don't have to get extra coverage for it, because theirs is up to $1 million. But if you don't provide it and you say that you did, that's where the liability lies.
Got you. Makes sense. Yeah, you can't be lying now.
Right.
So you alluded to this a little bit earlier, with the iPhone pictures and the phone pictures and things like that. Do you have like professional photographers coming out to photograph your properties, or how does it work? Okay.
Yep. So we have 3 in-house photographers that we work with.
Okay.
I have very high expectations for my properties. I do not micromanage them when they're doing the shoot, but I like them to understand my expectations of what I want to see.
Can you explain those expectations? Like what do you expect from good pictures when it comes to Airbnb, or I guess the look of the staging of an Airbnb? Yeah.
I love detailed pictures. I love creating a story for someone. So all of my properties are named. They all have identities. We just finished one. It was actually the night that I was talking to you on the phone. It's called The Curious Draper. It's named after Don Draper from Mad Men. And so, we have a bar cart set up kind of on the backside of an accent wall with like a whiskey bottle and a whiskey decanter and scotch glasses. And like, I want very detailed shots of that. Like, I want it to look magazine quality.
Man, that's dope.
Okay.
I'm gonna need you to send me a listing, because I would love to see one of your listings.
Yeah.
Just for reference. You know what I mean? Because I like to put the picture. What is it called? I like to put the picture with what you're describing. You know what I mean? That's how I make it make sense in my head, right? So
and just how I described it to you, I want to take the guest on a journey, and when they show up, I want that house to look exactly like those pictures. So my cleaning girls, they have links to the properties already, and they know that this pillow is supposed to be on this bed and this rug if it's missing, or they know those things, and that's part of the streamlining process between the staging, the cleaning, and the management.
Okay, that's dope.
Okay.
That's dope.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that, are all of your properties like kind of have even if it's not a hard theme but a subtle theme to them, or how do you go about, and how do you go about even choosing the themes? Like, is it things that you kind of personally find that are cool or attractive, or do you kind of get like a feel for the market? So how do you go about staging them as far as with the themes?
So, sounds really weird, but like me and my staging partner, her name's Ashley too, so I'm not speaking in third person when I say Ashley. We really connect with the property, and that's got to be the first thing. We have to decide how we want the property to develop and how we want it to kind of come to fruition, because once we're buying, if we don't have a game plan in mind, then it becomes, oh, I like this lamp, oh, I like this, oh, I like that, and then there's no continuity with the property. And so we're finishing up one today, and it's World Traveler. It's a World Traveler theme. There's an Amazon room, there's an African room, and there's a Japanese room. And so and then the whole living room, kitchen, and dining room is like old world, think like old Jumanji style kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, that's dope.
But so we have to go in with a vision with as many team members as we have, because if you ever heard of the saying too many hands in the cookie jar, then it kind of gets really scrambled and no one knows what they're doing.
Thanks.
So I like to develop identities to the property, because Charlotte is saturated with Airbnbs and short-term rentals right now. And so what is going to make my listing stand out amongst other listings? And so if it's something, even if it's themed, even if it's not themed, but still has, an identity to it, people attach themselves to that and they want to stay there. It's intriguing to them. We have another house that we finished about a month ago. It's called Casabella. It's a beautiful Cuban house that we transformed into basically Havana, Cuba. And it's gorgeous, and that's the first thing people say is, oh my gosh, this house is gorgeous. And then when the review comes in, it's like, oh my gosh, this house is gorgeous and it looks like the pictures.
I got you.
That's the most important part to me, because that's what other people will look at and they'll be like, okay, well, she's got really pretty pictures, anybody can take that. But then when a guest that stayed there says that it looks like that, that's when you start getting that money flow in.
Okay.
I love it. So we alluded to it a little bit earlier. I'm gonna stop using that word. I think that's like my second or third time using it today.
I'm gonna start using that word.
But we talked about this a little bit earlier. But location, right? Because I feel like we kind of breezed over it. How important is the location, and how much does that factor into the amount you charge for, I guess, your nightly rate?
So to me, this is a double-edged question. And I say that because, well, I have a marketing degree. So location depends on how much you can charge for.
Okay.
But transparency is most important. And I say that because we have a property, not going to say where it is, but we have a property in a part of North Carolina that was hit pretty hard during the pandemic. They are recovering. It's gorgeous. It has mountain views. It is tucked away on a little private road. But the house across the street, she owns a daycare. And there's toys everywhere in the front yard. The house beside us is condemned and is on the market, and one of my investors is trying to buy it. So it looks like it's falling in. It looks like it's not, it's dilapidated. It looks like maybe a homeless person could be living in there.
Gotcha.
I spin that and I say, and I can send you a copy of the listing and say, 2020 was hard for everyone. The pandemic caused a lot of people to lose jobs and find things to create other incomes. The house across the street owns a daycare. It's where kids are allowed to play outside and be kids, take it in stride. And that way, when they pull up and they see a bunch of toys everywhere, they don't automatically go, this is a bad neighborhood. This is trash. Like, there's stuff everywhere. Same thing with the house next door. hey, by the way, that property is going to be our next investment. You may see us over there from time to time creating a beautiful gym. Can't wait to have you back to the area and show you what she looks like down the road.
That's dope.
That's dope, man.
So you basically
That's
like
amazing.
paint the picture for them before they even get there, so that
Absolutely.
they view it the way
Absolutely.
that you want them to view it. That's crazy. Okay, but
Absolutely.
it's
So
smart.
expectations equal reality.
Absolutely. And I
That's dope.
promise you that has made my life a million times easier, because when they show up on a Friday night and it's 11 o'clock at night and there's a dilapidated house next to them, they don't ask me they don't ask me about it because it's in the listing. And so it's spinning it in a accurate way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's giving them that expectation, like you said, of them picturing exactly what that property looks like.
Exactly. Oh,
Okay.
that's dope, man. And real quick, bro, before you go, I
Okay.
do want to get into this. I have this question. So you were talking about how saturated the Charlotte area is starting to get. Like, would that be? I guess would you advise someone to open an Airbnb there?
So, excuse me. Charlotte is trying to come down with some restrictions.
Okay.
It's called the UDO. They have several different specifications that they're trying to impose. What is happening in Charlotte is an interesting transition, because you have a ton of people that are moving here,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a ton of people that are living here that are selling their houses to people that are moving here. Well, what
Gotcha.
that creates is kind of a bubble, because people that are moving here need somewhere to stay while these people are closing. So they're looking for short-term rentals. The people that are selling their houses don't have anywhere to go, so they need short-term rentals.
Mm.
And so you have these investors that are buying up these properties to create the supply for the demand.
Gotcha.
But then you also have people that can't find houses because everything's a short-term rental.
Got you. Okay.
So there's been a lot of haphazardly people coming into this industry from other places that just see dollar signs and they're not managing them correctly. The well, not really HOAs, it's not more neighbors in general, aren't
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with, it being an open door of people coming in and out all the
Gotcha.
time.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken several properties from other management companies where we've completely changed that. And I've had neighbors message me and they're like, hey, since you've taken over, it's been a piece of cake, because if you don't have the team behind you, this isn't doable. You absolutely have to have a team, and you have to have a team that cares about the properties and the business as much as you do.
Okay.
Well, what I was gonna ask to kind of make it more relatable to our people back home. So, and this was something I was kind of contemplating myself. So, what if you're in a smaller town? Small town is not really a travel destination. And it's not really a market. Like, there are no Airbnb properties here, where we're located. So would you just completely advise from not setting up a property here? Or is there a way to do it to where it can still be profitable even in a small town where there isn't even like any attractions or anything really nearby?
To create a market.
Yeah.
Sure. So with that, I would look at hotels in the area and see how much they're booking and see, what their occupancy is. And I mean, you can go on to a hotel website and look at the availability, right? So you're going to know if they're booked or not. And then I would also look at things that are near you, any type of mountains, any type of parks, any type of, whatever is in proximity around you that you may be able to gear people towards. Obviously, state regulations and city regulations to make sure that you can rent out that. Some states and cities have regulations where you can't, or you can only rent it for so many days, because it takes away from the hotels. So I would just really look and dive into that. So I wouldn't say that it's not doable. I don't think you have to be in a major metropolitan area to create demand. I think it's creating the hospitality that you can provide to someone if they're traveling or stopping through for the night, because we get a lot of people sometimes in some of our outskirt properties that are traveling through from destination to destination, and they just want somewhere peaceful to hang out in, the small towns.
Okay.
There's some people that specifically look for small towns.
Okay.
So whatever you can offer your guests where they don't have to go look for it, that's where your bang for your buck is.
Okay.
That's I like that you mentioned that, because I actually had this conversation with one of my friends, shout out to Tinsley. We were talking about that same exact situation, and in my head, right? I don't have a marketing degree. I'm not a host on Airbnb, but it made sense in my head, right? To combat the lack of demand, you create demand by selling an experience.
Sure.
Right. So I was thinking, okay, well, if you're gonna do that, why not create an experience, even if there's not much in that area? Why not create an experience, even for the locals? So whenever they come to your property, they can have that, small escape from the outside city. You know what I mean? So maybe a themed, one color unit, or whatever it is, or something all world, like like you just said that you did with one of your properties. I was thinking something like that. So like, what would you say to an idea like that?
No, I think, I'm never one to knock something for being the first to do it. So, you would probably be surprised if you did it, if it's allowed, how much interest you may get in it. And it may be something where you could talk to other people in the area and explain what you're doing and do that for them. Where that becomes kind of a rental arbitrage situation. So,
can you explain that? Explain what that is real quick.
Yeah, so rental arbitrage is like if you have a property and it may not be doing as well as you wanted it to do, or you had some long-term renters in there that you just decided, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I would come in and I would say, hey, you tell me what you need to make a month. Let's just say $2,800 a month. You would still pay the utilities on it. And I would make sure every month that you got that $2,800 a month, as long as you knew that I was going to be short-term renting it out.
Got you. Okay.
Okay.
And so when you say utilities, like, so the rent would come out of that 28, and then all the, of course, the lights and all that.
Well, like you would say 2,800 plus whatever your rent. 2,800 plus whatever your utilities are, and that's what I would give you every month.
Okay, that's dope.
Some people do the utilities a little different. That's how my contracts were structured.
Okay, so speaking of that 28, let's roll into prices real quick, right?
Okay.
Was that something you was about to ask, bro?
Nah, that's something I actually forgot that we need to get into. So yeah, let's do it.
Oh yeah, nah. I wanted to roll into. I wasn't gonna forget that. Trust me. So pricing, right? So like, how do you charge? Well, first, I'm gonna ask you about your unit specifically, and then I'm gonna, we can roll into what someone could look at charging. I don't know, starting out, maybe a basic unit, nice furniture but not luxurious. So first, let's get into what's your average nightly rate for your units?
180 to 220.
Man. Sheesh. 180 to 220. That's average, right? So that means she has, a few that are slightly below, and some that are more expensive, right? So 180 to 200 or 220, right? You said
220.
That's dope. How many nights per month do you expect your Airbnb to be booked? So is it like 80% type thing?
Well, there's an occupancy rate, and I get asked this question a lot. I'm never going to guarantee an investor how many nights they can be booked. I cannot predict the economy. When the gas started rising, we saw a drop because people weren't traveling. So I'm never going to be that person who's like, I'll have your place rented 31 days out of the month.
That's why I asked specifically about your units. Like, how, on average, your units, how many nights per month are your units on average booked out?
So we're looking at about 22 to 25 nights out of the month.
That's great. Because I was thinking 20 is amazing. So 22 to 25 is pretty dope.
Yeah. That's kind of what we're averaging right now. And one of the things that I was kind of trying to explain to you that night is the algorithm of Airbnb. And so Airbnb, when it was set up, it was only made to really be, you have one unit and you have one unit, right? Well, it has progressed into like, you have 5 units and you have 5 units. Well, you guys give me those 10 units, and then I have investors that have other units, right? So it goes into a pool. And what happens is, let's say you had all 5 of your units booked and you had all 5 of your units booked. That's 10 units booked for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
When all 10 of those check out and leave reviews, all the properties repopulate into the searches. So we know without a shadow of a doubt. So usually we have checkouts on Sundays and Mondays. Whatever is not booked either by Thursday or Friday will be booked by that Thursday, because all the reviews repopulate into the system.
So how does that algorithm work though, right? Like I know it's review based.
It is.
But you get the good review, you're pushed to the top of the list when someone's searching that city in that space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that leads into my next question. Superhost. How do you obtain the title of being a superhost? Because I already know you're one. So can you explain to the people how do you achieve that?
It's a lot of different requirements that they expect of you. One is like cancellation rates. How many have you canceled due to not the property not being ready? The property, something happening in the guest checking in and then canceling the reservation due to like a cleaning issue. Nights that you're booked, amenities that you offer, your cleaning status. So all of those go into basically a pot that determines your superhost status, your responsive time, your response time on the app, how quick you are to respond. Do you let people just sit there and wait for a response? Are you on it? You know, I would rather be super transparent with a guest and sending them everything that they need to know. Like we were talking about the Wi-Fi information that, you know, we do the stocking with like paper towels, coffee, dish pods, so on. And I take a picture of that and send it to them. So I'm like, here's all your supplies for the week. You know, I do whatever I can to combat my weekend being a million questions of where is this? Why don't I have this? I can't find this. It's all right in your face.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's dope.
That's smart.
That's convenient. Because I actually just recently stayed at an Airbnb and it was not good. I'm going to just say it wasn't good. I ain't going to bust dude out, but it definitely could have been planned out a little bit better.
Yeah. And you have to treat it like a business. You know, my girls were going in there and they were putting trash bags under sinks. They were putting, you know, dishwashing pods underneath sinks. But for some reason, we as Americans got really lazy during COVID. And if it's not in our face, then we don't know where to look for it. And so if I can send them a picture and say, here's all your supplies for the week, guess what? That's 5 questions that I just got off my plate about where something is.
I got you. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I can imagine the goal would be to basically let the property make money for you while you get to enjoy your time off. You know, you don't want to be quote unquote off, but still working because you steadily, you know, trying to figure out answers. And Tyler, you can backtrack if you need to, but I want to get into like maybe some of the downsides of, you know, being an Airbnb host. Like, you know, what are some of the experiences that you've had, you know, that you've gone through, and maybe any prior knowledge would have, you know, helped in that situation?
Some people just can't be pleased, and you have to work with investors that understand the realistic side of that. I've kind of cleared my plate a little bit, and I'm going to be kind of PC about this, but I've cleared my plate on working with people that don't have realistic expectations of this. Okay. You may have a mom who had a really bad drive in, was stuck in weather, you know, standing outside trying to get in with 4 of her kids on, the grocery stores are closed, whatever, right? Whatever you can't control. And she's automatically on a warpath. And so at that point, it's kind of like, what can you do to fix this? But honestly, some people just can't be pleased. And you have to go in knowing that you did the best you could to make that experience. Airbnb is really good. I don't want to say if you're a super host, I don't want to use that word because I feel like sometimes that word gets a little thrown around. Airbnb is really good if you can prove something. So we have a no smoking policy in our properties. If I call Airbnb and I'm like, someone smoked in here, they're like, well, I mean, we can't smell that, you know? I have it posted. There's a no smoking for $500 fee. But the flip side is that I own the cleaning company. So I have full control over the cleaning company. So when those girls are in there and it smells like smoke, they're looking for ashes. They're looking for butts. They're looking for any type of evidence in that house that I can send to Airbnb and be like, boom, here you go. Here's the proof. And so, you know, I mean, I could talk all day and write a book on the experiences. I really could. But I think it's more of how to not let that happen by setting your standards, creating your boundaries, and being completely transparent on what you will accept and what you will not accept.
No, that's a great explanation. Yeah, because I think me and you talked about this a couple of days ago, man. Like you'll never be able to please everybody. You know, when we were designing like our shirts and things like that, like we were trying to find a way to, you know, maximize, like, how can we get a lot of people to buy? Here's the thing, man. Like, the message is the message, right? And, you know, if people rock with it, they rock with it. If they don't, they don't. Right. There's always going to be two sides. You know, you'll never be able to cater to everybody. So I'm glad that I'm glad you were able to, I guess, confirm our conversation that we had a couple of days ago, man.
Well, and people see through that too. So if you have 40 good reviews and you have one review that just shreds you, and that person's like, I'm gonna destroy you. You know, I'm gonna make sure that nobody ever rents from you. I'll get out of here, because that's not happening. Because people can look at that and be like, man, that person's a real Debbie Downer, and they are not happy with life because look at all the other reviews. But then at the bottom, you see all of our properties, 5.0, you know, 4.9s, and you know that was somebody's perspective of something that probably wasn't accurate.
Exactly. It was just a bad day from them. Okay, so I do want to backtrack just a little bit because we kind of glossed over. So I did get into what the average nightly rate on your properties were. But if you can answer. So I'm new to the Airbnb space. You know, I have a nice setup. It's not luxurious and it's not themed, but it's nice. You know, everything is there. And I'm in, let's say, the city of Charlotte, somewhat close to, you know, nice attractions and things like that. What's a good nightly rate that I can expect, you know, without the superhost? What's a good nightly rate I can expect to charge and actually get conversions or bookings based on that price?
Am I managing it for you, or are you managing?
You're managing it. Well, give me both prices. Both prices.
If you're managing it and it's your first property and you have no reviews, you're probably looking, man, that's a hard one, because if I'm managing it, my properties create your demand. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
So
because you put them under your name, correct?
Right. Okay, right. Yeah. So if I'm managing it, my properties are creating your demand, which can create your asking price.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you're doing it yourself, you know, I mean, that's a shot in the dark.
Ballpark.
Probably 100.
Okay. $100. Okay. Not bad.
Depending on your size, like as far as like how many beds, how many baths, you know, I mean, it really depends on, and then also take into account the lower your pricing is, you may be, you know, testing the waters with some interesting clientele.
Got you. That makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. And back to the conversation that we just jumped from. You stated the downside, but in your area, okay, let's get back into, I guess, what someone could expect to make in your area, on your platform, managed by you, inside of a year's time, right? Like, what is a realistic expectation that someone can expect to make, in the Charlotte area, again, managed by you, their first year in the Airbnb business?
So first year, I'm gonna more answer that in payouts that we do biweekly. I'm
Okay.
sending one investor $6,000 biweekly.
Can you say it again? I don't know if I think something. Say it
Yeah.
again, because I think something's wrong with my speakers. So
Yeah. He averages about $6,000 biweekly.
okay,
That's 12,000 a
And
month,
that's after my cut. That's after my cut.
and that's just
after your
purely
cut. Okay,
owning
so
the
That's after
property
my cut.
because you basically handle everything else, right? As far as
We handle everything.
furnishing, cleaning,
Yep.
and whatever other variables. As long as you own that property, we hand it
So
off to you.
listen,
the staging is different. It's a separate entity, it's a separate LLC. So
Okay.
they basically pay us to furnish it. So don't think of it like that, but think of it as it was furnished to make that much money.
Okay.
And it was
gotcha.
furnished with that in mind to make that much money. So we
Mhm.
go in with that in our head. We want this to be X amount. We want to be able to get this amount off of it. We want to be able to book this many nights.
Mhm.
So then you flip that into, once it's up, I do the listing. We do the pictures. I write the listing. I set the pricing. And then that flips over into the cleaning. So the cleaning is passed to the guest. The guest pays the cleaning. I
Mhm.
usually set my cleaning depending on the size of the house and how many linens. Usually 100 to 150, maybe 200, and a little bit more if it's a bigger house, because we do have like some 8-bedroom houses. And then we do the linens. So I take care of all the linens. So if I'm charging $150, that's $100 cleaning fee and a $50 linen fee that is combined to create that.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
that is 6,000, around 6,000 biweekly after the cleaning has already been paid out. My cut has already been paid out, and that's the profit.
Listen, people, listen. I understand it's not realistic for everybody to get the $6K paid out bi-weekly. I understand that. But if you're even able to make 20 to 10% of that amount in this business, man, why not do the research and figure out if it's something that works for you? You know what I mean? So that's just my quick message to the people who's listening to this, because that's crazy, you know.
And all my investors are completely hands off. So we handle everything. They literally, like, they'll message me and sometimes say, hey, I don't know, we have the filter guy coming by next week. Is it booked? And I'm like, nope, we're good. And they're like, okay, cool. Or, hey, I want to have my daughter's birthday party in 3 weeks there. Can you block it off for me? But other than that, it's completely hands off. We handle everything.
Man, that's dope.
Mhm.
That's dope.
Okay.
And let's segue into that cleaning company though. Did you have something, bro?
Well, it was
Before I
in the
segue
same
into
vein
that?
of that, but I was gonna say, yeah, let's expand out because she's been mentioning like the cleaning services, and the interior design service, that you have. Like, how did you? So you started on Airbnb with your property, but it sounds like now that you have a whole like conglomerate of businesses going on at
My
one time.
empire.
Yeah, empire. So how did you like expand out to that point?
Yeah, so when I
Good question.
started Airbnb and I started doing it, obviously I was cleaning it myself, which
Mhm.
was a pain in the what, but it really taught me kind of what it took to do this. And
Mhm.
I started, I developed a residential cleaning company from that. And so once I started doing residential cleaning, I'm talking about like my baby and my stroller cleaning baseboards at somebody's house. I mean,
Mhm.
my daughter's the real MVP in all of this. And I'm sorry, it just takes me back to a crazy time. So I would I would end up developing these relationships with my clients, and they would, know I didn't talk about Airbnb. It was something that was kind of taboo at that time because, my God, you let strangers sleep in your house. That's kind of weird, right? So
Yeah.
it would kind of naturally progress with this relationship. And they would say, hey, I have a rental property over on the other side of town. We have tenants moving out. Would you be interested in doing a move out clean for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. And then it would sit there for a little bit and I would say, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Have you ever thought about like getting into this? And they're like, what are you talking about? And so then it kind of became a coaching thing. So I would actually like get them set up and create what I do now, except on a little bit smaller scale, and then leave them and go off and do whatever I'm doing. And then they would call me back and they would say, we can't find a cleaner. We can't find someone to do the linens. We can't do this. We can't do that. And so that kind of blossomed into what it is now. So there's Pretty Clean, which is the cleaning company. Pretty Stays, which is the management and interior design.
Mhm.
Pretty Eats, which is the catering company, which was brought to fruition during COVID. Pretty Green, which is the landscaping company. I think that's it.
Man.
Yeah.
So,
So
man, that's pretty dope, man. That's pretty dope.
So real quick, do those services like provide services outside of just people with Airbnb properties? Like, is it just like even people with, outside of Airbnb, do you provide your services to those people, customers?
So we were providing like landscaping services to clients, and we were providing, the catering to different clients. And then it really just got to be too much because the management was starting to take off so well. So I kind of pulled back. The catering was amazing during COVID because no one wanted to go out and eat. So I basically brought a personal chef in, and we created fixed menus for people to order off of and have food delivered to them while they were staying in the Airbnbs, especially nurses and doctors during that time.
Man, that's dope.
It's crazy.
Landscaping, again, we kind of pulled back because we started getting so many properties in the portfolio that needed to be addressed, as far as like grass cutting or blowing of leaves or, treatment. And it just wasn't profitable to go cut Joe's yard for 20 or 40 bucks versus 10 properties that needed to be done today.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I got you.
Okay. And I'm always going to be the guy that goes back because I always think about a question I could have asked earlier on in the conversation. But we didn't cover this one at all, right? So property types, you mentioned you started with a condo, but what types of properties do you service now? Is it just single family homes? Is it single family and condos, or is it single family condos and apartments?
So apartments are super, super hard.
Okay.
They are out to get you every which way under the sun.
Why is that?
Because you're basically subletting, and the demand is so high here in Charlotte right now. They don't need to be able to let you sublet something out because they know that they can make that.
Okay.
And then once you get into apartments, you also start getting into like gated apartments, right? Or trash issues, or, neighbors that are nosy. And so it just kind of domino effects after that. So we do have a few condos. They have to be a certain minimum amount of nights. It can't be like a 3-night minimum. It has to be at least a 7-night minimum.
Okay.
So that, it's not distracting to the people that live there, people coming in and out, people asking questions. Hey, where is this? Where's this building? I mean, 1 or 2 times you might be okay. Yeah, I'll help you find your building. But after a while, it's gonna be like, really? Like, are we not giving guests the right directions to their building?
Exactly.
And then single family homes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into this then. What advice, because we're approaching our hour, what advice would you give someone who is interested in joining Airbnb? They've listened to this interview. They're intrigued by all the things. They haven't been deterred from, the downsides that you've mentioned. Like, what advice would you give them in starting their business within Airbnb?
First would be decide if you want to manage it or not. I have some investors that I do work with that are on the platform so that they can learn how to do this eventually. They watch how I interact with guests. They watch how, I respond, and the hospitality factor. So, if you're willing to be that investor and you want to learn from it, allow a management company to teach you.
Gotcha.
But if you want to do it yourself, understand it's a full-time job. And it's something that can be very lucrative or it can be very detrimental.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing would be, deciding proximity wise, if you're going to manage it yourself, how close you are going to be to that property when 12 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, the toilet's overflowing. How fast are you going to be able to get to that property to help that guest?
That makes sense. That makes sense. I love it, man. Listen, you came on, dropped way more gems than I was expecting, and I appreciate it. You know what I mean? We appreciate it. as a show, man. And I'm sure our listeners will appreciate this conversation, man. You legit just gave them a masterclass on, how to, or what to expect from Airbnb, right? So, again, thank you for that, man. Ashley, how do you say your last name?
It's Heartbreaker. No, I'm just kidding. It's Harkrader.
Hard. Say it again.
Hark, Hark.
Okay.
Rader.
Harkrader.
Harkrader.
Got you.
Okay.
Hey, Ashley Harkrader. You heard her here first. I don't care if you heard her somewhere else first. You heard her here first. Uncharted Mind, man. Listen, we all about giving y'all the game, man. Talk to him, man. Let them know. Oh, and then my man just been sitting over here quietly rocking the merch that we finna drop. Bro, give him a brief synopsis of what we got going on with the Elevate, man.
So Elevate, man, we had the Life, Health, Wealth sweatshirts, but we want to kind of consolidate that message into, one phrase or one meaning. So we broke it down to Elevate, man. It's sitting on 8 pillars that we really believe can transform your way of living in, any area, once you apply those principles. So, we got this coming real soon, and we're really finna start leaning into the message of it. And, we hope it takes, or we know it'll take off, and
sure, it will.
Yeah, man, just look forward to it.
It's up from
so
here,
I'll be
man.
Expecting mine in the mail, right?
Oh, for sure. We got to get you. It's crazy. As you was talking, I was thinking, I was like, listen, I'm so happy that you are the way you are, because you're dope, man. Your energy is amazing, and I feel like it'll be easier for us to, go into business together, or do something, or even just, you know what I'm saying, anything. So again, I appreciate you for stopping by, man. We appreciate you as a show for stopping by, and I'm sure, again, our guests will appreciate you for dropping the game that you dropped. And if you need anything from us, man, please don't hesitate to ask.
All right.
We will be sending you the notification once once we get ready to drop this interview, just so you can, have your antennas up and ready to go, and push it as much as you want, or as little, up to you.
Yeah, of course.
And it's up from there, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's a fun industry. Don't take what I said as anything being, a scary venture. It's fun, and it's something that should be fun. It's just got to be treated like a business.
For sure. Business is business, man. Business is business. Hey, there you have it, man. This has been Uncharted Mind, man. We signing off. We love y'all. Peace.
Yes, sir. We gone.